side. This is where I'm going to let Jason take over. So here is the requirement where, from the permit, it's in table 6.5, where we've been required by the state to address these 17 areas where we have the potential to find varied ordinance and varied ordinance maybe even implemented.
I'm Jason Watson. I work for Terry. I'm been with the restoration program since 2005. I guess started off as a map maker, GIS person, and then kind of slowly moved into the role of site manager. And now I'm managing all of the munitions cleanup sites and or chemical agent cleanup sites. Is kind of where I've kind of been my focus. On the interim measures, Terry talked about the 17 sites, and what these were 17 sites on our permit that required an investigation. The state said, we want you to go into an interim measure, which is go out and get moving forward on them and go and work to clean them up. So I was talking earlier how we're trying to build this program, and we kind of stepped along where we did the historical research, and then we did documentation, prepared documents. We're doing a non-intrusive investigation, which you were talking about the ground penetrating radar, and we've got some examples of the types of investigation. We call that our non-intrusive. We're not digging, because once we start digging, the state and we call it Big Army, but above the installation we have an Army level safety office that approves all of our site plans and our documents, and then it also goes up to a Department of Defense explosive safety board. So we're having to step along, and before we can dig, we have to have an answer for all of these what ifs. And a lot of these what ifs are, well, what if you find a munition? Well, need an EDS to take care of it, because I just can't sit on it. We'll also need somewhere to put it in storage. So as we're moving in from this non-intrusive investigation into the intrusive investigation, it caused me to have to do 2 permit modifications, because our permit is like our rules that we have, that the state has given us, our rules, how we clean things up, which stage they are in the cleanup process, which ones have been already cleaned, which ones are in investigation, which ones are in the cleanup product. Well, our permit didn't really cover this EDS, because the state said you have to permit this treatment system, and that one of the reasons why we're here now is because when you add a treatment system to an existing permit, you need to have a public meeting and let everybody and let people, just like we're doing, talk and ask questions and all that kind of stuff. We also had to add we call our storage igloos, or hazardous waste storage. It's a slide up here, but I've got a picture of one of our we call them earth-covered magazines. They're underground covered with earth, and that helps if anything explodes in them. It keeps that contained and keeps the shrapnel and whatever else going in, and that way we can safely do this. We had to, since all munitions are hazardous waste, by default it's very specialized hazardous waste, but it is, so we had to add these 24 locations to the permit. It's on the table in the permit that says, hey, you can store your hazardous waste here. The state gives us a set of rules that we have to follow. They track it that way, and then when we're finished doing all this, we'll have to address those individual igloos as a cleanup site itself. And we call those solid waste management units, SHMOOs for short. But that's each one. We say we've got 405 sites or 192 sites. Those are those solid waste management units that how the state tracks it. So we've got the non-intrusive investigation where we went in and did a lot of historical research. We went to the National Archives in Maryland. We went and did all sorts of document research, followed the money a lot, travel tickets, trip reports. We looked for anything that said Redstone, Huntsville, Alabama, and all that stuff, and found a lot of old maps and a lot of old documents that kind of got us close to where we think all of these things are. Because I mean, they weren't burying bombs. They just wasn't willy-nilly out there. So it was pretty good. And then they put the arsenal up for sale in 1947. So they did a lot of research then to try to see what condition the land was in, whether or not it was suitable to be sold. They said, no, keep it. Let's do something else with it. One of our Braun came in and they started going into the missile era and the rocketry era, and that's really when NASA began to organically form through different organizations within the Army that actually went into NASA. So on the non-intrusive investigation, we took those areas that we found, got close, and then and we haven't done all of them yet. We've completed 2 out of the 17 sites. We're starting another site. I think in 2 weeks we're starting 35. So, and then we're to take those areas in different forms of we call it ground penetrating radar, real fancy metal detectors. Some of the metal detectors that'll just detect you and kind of say there's something here, and kind of we'll use those to make the area safe for the workers so that we can move around. Then we have some we call DGM, digital geophysical mapping, with it'll send a signal down and bounce up, and then the computer program will capture that data. And then we can manipulate that data, look at it, and produce these real fancy maps. And you can see, over there, I don't have it on the slide, but you can see in that middle poster, you can, if you afterwards, you can kind of look, and that's kind of the results of some of this digital geophysical mapping. Kind of the non-intrusive investigation on one of these sites. We're getting ready to, we're wrapping that up. The state has approved our, what we call our DGM report, our report that shows what we have, and we did quality assurance on it. We've really partnered with the state and multiple other government agencies to get this document. This is our data. We all agree this is our data. We agree this is good data. So now we can go into the intrusive investigation, which we want to maybe look at, like as Terry was talking about, test pits, to try to see if what we think we know is really there. Because what we do know is that was a hole in the ground in the 1940s and the 50s. They were putting nasty stuff up in there. Bombs and stuff, but who's to say they didn't put other things, building materials, trash, scrap, just whatever, we don't know. So that's why we're going to try to get these transects, and then other things that we look for, like what we call single point anomalies, where a bomb just might be sitting there, but it might not be part of a trench. So we've also ran a type of DGM that we look for those single points. So we've selected a representative sample of those to dig and see if we know what we think we know, and just to look at that. And this will help us develop the phase 2 work plans, which is actually that work plan that help that design, where we're going to design this remediation and go out there and try to clean it. These investigations help us plan for manning, for cost. These are, you saw the 1.4 billion. I mean, my stuff is sitting at about 550 million right now is what we forecast, what we know. Big Army would like to know if that's how good that number is. You know, this is going to go down a little bit, then go up a little bit. Well, all of these intrusive investigations are more information that we have that will allow us to better scope that in many different ways. How do we want to contract for it? What's the best approach? A lot of different things go into us before we write this work. And then we go into the execution, the phase 3 execution of the cleanup there. And that's whenever we will be full on, start at one, and not precisely, but start at one end and start cleaning up everything that we see out there. And we'll have to have possibly different technologies there. And that's one of the reasons why I'm going to the next, while we're doing the 2 permit models, because we have to prep for the hazardous waste storage. And we're doing the explosive destruction system. That way, we've got a way, if we do find a bomb during this intrusive investigation, we've got a way to treat it and take care of it. I'm going to hit the storage piece and the hazardous waste storage, the 24 igloos. We'll have another group come up here from RCMD, and they'll talk a little bit more specifically about the EDS. So, hazardous waste storage, we are asking the state to add 24 storage locations. Types of hazardous waste to be stored. You have hazardous and toxic waste. That's your normal everyday characteristic waste that must be treated, manifested out, and sent to a facility that is permitted and certified to accept that type of waste. Same thing we'll do, we'll follow the same as TCE, the perchlorate, the solvents. That's all hazardous and toxic waste. So some of the stuff that we will encounter while we're cleaning things up will have that hazard and toxic waste. When the EDS finishes doing its thing and blowing it up, at the end of that is hazardous and toxic waste. It's not chemical agent waste because of the process we use, but it is HTW waste. So we needed storage, so you've got pull stuff out of the ditch or investigation, you put it in storage, or we're waiting to use it for the EDS. Characterize it, see what it is, take care of it in the EDS, let the EDS do its thing, and then you have waste coming out of the back end of that we drum up. We have to store it too. So the location where we've got 24 storage igloos, and that's kind of in a co-located place where we'll also be able to put this EDS at. So we've got like a system going there that'll allow us not to put that stuff on the road too much. You know, we don't want to transfer it out, so the only time we really want to move that is when it comes from the trench itself down into that block location. We've got all this stuff at. Ordnance and explosive waste, those are the bombs that we pick up now. I remember I talked about it being a hole in the ground, and they might have been putting these recovered chemical warfare munitions or the bomb bodies, but they might have had a high explosive bomb that they needed to get rid of. Maybe there was a high explosive bomb that really wasn't acting too nice, or maybe it was a dud or something like that, and I was like, well, those guys have got a ditch over there. So we're going to take that one. We might run into that stuff, so we have set up bunkers, or at least igloos, that can handle that type of waste, because the state of Alabama says a waste is a waste. No matter if it's TCE or if it's a bomb, it's a hazardous waste, so you have to put it in a certain way with certain rules. And then we have what we call unknown liquid fill or recovered chemical warfare material. When we pull a bomb body or a munition that is what we call chemically configured, we can't say that's a mustard, we can't say that's lewisite, we can't say it's high explosive. We have to do additional testing for that. And then there's a board, a group of experts that meet that will look at the data and then tell you what type of filler that has or what type of chemical munition. Until that board certifies that, we call those unknown liquid fill items. We have a place to put those. Once that board, munitions assessment review board, the MAR board is the one. So we have an unknown liquid fill, one that looks like it was chemically configured. We'll take an x-ray of it, we'll do some other real fancy tests on it, and they will review the data. Once that board meets and convenes and tells us what that is, then it could possibly recover chemical warfare material or RCW. We've got igloos for those too. So we've got unknown liquid filled, then we have some for some of the specific too. And that's again why we've got 24 locations, is because we've got a lot of different, we have to segregate our waste. Again, because the state considers all waste. DOD says safety, this is why you got to do it here, but for the state it's all waste. They're all on the same table. So HCW, it's managed by us, managed by Redstone until final treatment and disposition. Go back on what Terry was saying, taking it to either Clean Harbors or Michigan or whatever, just depending on what that waste is and what its characteristic of determines on how we segregate it and what its final disposition is. Signage and labeling, manifesting and shipping, we track all the stuff. RCRA, Resource Conservation and Recovery Act, calls it cradle to grave. If you created that waste, if you're responsible for that waste, because Redstone is responsible for all of our waste, from inception until the end of time. So even when we send something to a landfill and something happens with that landfill, we can still be on the hook for that waste because we contributed to that problem of that landfill. That's how RCRA determines cradle to grave. So that's why I just want to make that clear. Redstone maintains responsibility to a certain extent, even when we send that stuff off-site. These are the type of things that we go over. We tell the state, this is how we're going to do this. This is how we're going to provide secondary containment. If we do have a spill, what are we going to do? How are we going to do it? Ordnance and explosive waste. That's your bombs, your regular bombs, your HE, your high explosives. They're a hazardous waste. Additionally, if you're storing this type of stuff in those igloos, there's a Department of Defense manual 6055.09, the Ammunition and Explosive Safety Standards. That's our rule. That's the DOD level. We've got all these guidelines that we've had to follow and set up to meet these standards. Even the multiple government organizations approve this. So we do this, not only Colonel Marks approves this, but then he writes a memo to the installation commander and says, sir, will you look at this and approve this? And when you do, will you send it to the Army Technical Center for Explosive Safety? And the general will review it and sign it. And they'll send it to TSIS and say, will you please review and approve send it to DOD, Explosive Safety Group. So that happens for each one of these locations, and we have defined what each one of these locations narrowed down to what we specifically want to use for. About 11 of the 24 of the igloos. The remainder, they fit in that block. We're leaving ourselves room to grow, and also it fits our fencing and all that kind of stuff. So unknown liquid fuel items, recovered chemical warfare material, they must meet all the standards for hazardous and toxic waste. They must meet all the standards for ordnance explosive waste. But then you also have the Department of the Army interim guidance for chemical warfare material responses and related activities. So that anytime any installation does a planned remediation or dig in an area that is deemed to have a risk of chemical agent or chemical materials, you follow that guidance right there. That gives us a lot of our safety criteria, how we do it. It institutes a series of training, required training, and also a tabletop survey that's graded by UCTSIS before we're allowed our workers to go in and actually do this. We do several weeks of training, get Big Army to sign off on that, they participate in it. So a lot of safety measures go in on the DOD side, but then they also look at our igloos and tell us how we have to set those up and where to position them and what limits we can put in there. It also is a requirement for first entry monitoring, so we just don't go and open the door. We'll go in and we'll do some sort of air monitoring there, testing the air to make sure the worker safety. That's really what drives how slow we are is worker safety and all the precautions and all the documents that we have to set up to safeguard these things. Additional characterization, you see this is the X-ray. There's technology that you can run and look and see what that material is there. So there's additional assessment. Additional security measures also. We have to have access to roving guards. If we, and I'll hit on the next slide. Go ahead and hit the next slide. You can kind of see intrusion detection here. We've got lighting, a telephone, chemical. H is the symbol for mustard gas. So if you ever see the circle with the H, that means that location is storing mustard. Now this is an example. I photoshopped all of these on here just for reference. I want to put that out there. So we're not storing anything with building numbers. There's not a location or anything like that. But we've upgraded 11 of these first entry monitoring ports, so we can go there and we can take an air sample from inside the building without ever opening the doors. This one is a symbol of what type of explosive it is. There's different numbers and different symbols and different combinations. So that this is set up to let you know what's in there and different protocol that you'll have to use. We've got security requirements. Army Regulation 190-11, physical security of arms, ammunition, and explosives. Well, that's our rule book for the security fence. And I hit on, we've got to have roving guards. We've got some fences and gates to control the access. There's multiple key holders, so we'll have one person holding the key for this, another organization holding the key to the gate around the igloo, and another organization holding the key to the door to the igloo. Now we've got all this stuff safeguarded, and it's very strict access. It's controlled and it's highly regulated.